Let's start off from Nigeria, where we understand that by-elections will hold in 80 local government areas across Nigeria to fill vacancies created by the resignation, death, or removal of lawmakers through post-election litigation. In all, the election will fill vacancies in 3 senatorial districts, 17 federal and 28 state constituencies spread across 80 local government areas. About 575 registration centers and wards, and also over 8,000 polling units involving over 4 million registered voters, out of which over 4 million permanent voter cards have been collected. And of course, some notable vacancies to be filled are those of Honorable Femi Gbajabiamila, Senator David Umahi, and also Senator Ibrahim Gaidam, Honorable Bomitun Jojo, Honorable Tanko Sanunu, will resign to take up appointments as the Chief of Staff to the President and ministers, respectively. There are also the seats of Honorable Ismaila Machachi, a member-elect from Taraba who died before inauguration, amongst others. Now, the big issue here is this. Expectations are pretty much high, with a mix of anxiety too. Now, what people are looking out for is this. Will this election make a difference, or will it be the usual trend, particularly that one experienced during the 2023 elections? These, of course, stands to be answered. And to make sense of this, we have joining on the show Barrister Jide Ologun, legal practitioner, and also Godbless Otubure, Global President, Ready to Lead Africa. Gentlemen, thank you for joining the program.
Thank you for having me.
All right, let me start off with you, God bless. How would you so far rate the preparation, particularly of the umpire, INEC, for tomorrow?
When you look at the question about how will I rate the preparation, I'm currently not in the situation room of INEC or the logistical team of INEC, but when you look at the public preparation of INEC, the public sensitization of citizens in these different local government areas and states, 26 states, you realize that it's like election is not happening. Of course, you cannot take away the fact that there are other national issues that have crept into our national focus that have also taken a lot of space in terms of conversation, that have also overshadowed, the elections that are upcoming. So that I can say, but from our conversations with INEC and everything we've been discussing with INEC, the head of the agency, the INEC chairman has given assurances again to say the commission is ready and is prepared to execute this election. Of course, it's less than 3% of what INEC covers in terms of its work. So so far we are just going to wait and see what the outcome is like, and tomorrow will determine if INEC is prepared or not.
I'd like to go to Barrister Ologun this time around, asking the same question, but I would also appreciate if you can do some sort of comparison with what we saw in 2023, where INEC also did back then say they were prepared and ready and good to go, and then we saw how the election eventually panned out. Now, this time around, INEC is also saying, look, we are ready, we are good to go. The elections hopefully should go, on as planned. We already have our personnel and materials on ground. Do you think this is just another rhetoric? Barrister Ologun, please. We are still trying to connect with Barrister Ologun. God bless. I'd have to come back to you on this one. This is not the first time we are hearing this kind of rhetoric from INEC, saying they're good to go, they're well prepared, they have their personnel on ground, they have materials on ground and all of that. And at the end of the day, there are issues that would even span up to the level of the Supreme Court. I mean, is this another rhetoric for you?
That question was for me?
Yes, yes.
Do you mind taking that again, please?
Okay, so my question is this. I said that compared to what we have seen in recent elections, particularly the 2023 elections, I mean, there were issues, that were underlining. Part of it had to do with the transmission of results, and we saw some of these issues linger, to the level of the Supreme Court, right? I mean, do you see that happening? I mean, or do you think that this time around, the umpire would have learned, a few lessons, takeaways from what we saw in 2023 polls?
Well, I mean, I want to believe that INEC would have learned a thing or two with regards to conducting elections and ensuring that the results don't get to the courts as the final, judge for who has won or who has not. Nevertheless, none of the cases that may come up from these elections will go to the Supreme Court. I think they'll all terminate at the appeal court at level. But this is what I know. What I do know is that, trust me, whether INEC is prepared or not, does its work, the average Nigerian politician of today will still say he or she was rigged, or, we will find something like that, except cases where it is crystal clear and people just, take their L and they go home. But the possibility of that happening is high because we run a system where people fund their own campaign, and the people who are voting are not the people who fund the campaign. So it is a winner-takes-all game that we're playing in Africa, or maybe that we're playing in Nigeria. So the possibility of that happening is very high. But again, it behoves on INEC to now say, what have we learned from 2023, conduct of elections? What did we learn from the off-cycle elections that we conducted in Kogi, Bayelsa, and Imo? These are some of the things that will be put to test. We're talking about federal, constituencies at the House of Reps, and we have 3 senatorial districts. We have a lot of, other by-elections that are going to be conducted, and it's not as it's not like governorship or presidential elections that are really tedious logistically. We want to believe that INEC would be better managed at this time, so that it can deliver a seamless and smooth and acceptable election to the people. Just before I round this off, you did mention something around the electronic transmission of results. I know INEC has made a commitment to say it was a mistake, there was a glitch, and there were issues during the presidential elections. And we saw that there was an improvement during the Kogi, Imo, and Bayelsa elections with the transmission of results. So let's believe that that is the same thing that will happen, tomorrow across the 26 states and, over 80, local government areas that this election will be happening.
All right, now let's come to the aspect of the voters themselves. I mean, do you see a situation where people will come out en masse tomorrow to actually cast their votes, or it's just going to be, voter apathy, where people just sit back and feel that, look, based on what we experienced in 2023, maybe personally I do not trust the system, so I'll just sit back at home and watch television?
Our projection at Ready to Lead Africa going into the by-elections is that there's going to be huge voter apathy, and it is not unconnected to other variables in the national economy. Because when the economy is doing really poorly, people tend to stay back and not participate in voting. So Ready to Lead Africa is predicting heavy voter, low turnout. Of course, when you read CDD's and Yaga's pre-election reports, it also gives that level of skepticism. And that is also because, again, there has not been really massive voter education campaign going into this particular election. So these are some of the indices that we're studying. And I can tell you from where we're sitting that the data before us, looking at our social listening tools that we employ, the possibility of low voter turnout is high. One, low voter education campaigns going on because, again, like we said, political parties have naturally abandoned that responsibility to INEC, and INEC is saying, no, political parties, you guys are the people looking for power. You go and do that responsibility. There's that ongoing, conversation. And then again, the national economy, insecurity in some of the areas where this election is happening will also dampen spirit. And we can tell you that there will be low voter turnout tomorrow.
That's pretty huge. I would like to know Barrister Ologun's take on this one. Barrister Ologun, can you hear me?
I can hear you clearly.
All right, great. Nice of you to join us. Now, I would like you to react concerning what you see in terms of voters coming out tomorrow to participate, in the polls. Now, Godbless has said that based on their findings, we might just experience voter apathy. Do you see that happening?
Most likely, particularly with what Nigerians went through with the tribunals and the court decisions. So some may not just be interested, but I believe that would have been handled by the candidates who have been shortlisted to participate in the elections, because it's not fully the business of INEC to bring electorates out, even though they have the mandate of voters' education. The participants, the politicians themselves, are the ones to mobilize their voters to come and vote for them. But I quite agree with Mr. Godbless' position that with the current hardship in the nation, particularly also the state of insecurity, many may just sit back and say, let's keep them to go and vote, because we have about 4,900, about 4,904,627 registered voters. You know what that means? So how many of them will come out? And about 4,013 collected their permanent voters card. And then, some of them may just say, okay, let's watch them and see how it will turn out. And this is an issue I have counseled that should concern the legislative arm of government, because as we speak right now, there is no provision on quorum for election. So if you have 78 million registered voters and only 8,000 come out to vote under our constitution, the elections will still be counted, but we expect that the politicians would have mobilized, and INEC is saying we are ready for these elections. And I do not expect that INEC will come up with any excuse, because late 2023, when the chairman was before the National Assembly to defend the 18 billion naira supplementary budget, the by-elections were some of the elements he brought in. And he even mentioned it then that it was, amazing that within about 4 months of inaugurating the National and State Assemblies, about 11 vacancies already occurred. So, and right now, the day is here, just tomorrow, and we are watching to see how INEC will be able to handle. We also expect that with the experiences during the last presidential election, 2023, the governorship, the National Assembly, and the post-elections judicial interventions and decisions, INEC should be expected to perform better. And isolating Benue State, for instance, the spokesperson for INEC claims that the non-sensitive materials have been moved to relevant destinations, while they still have sensitive that it will move. And he also stated that he had been networking with the security chiefs in the state, the aim of providing adequate security during and after the election. And if that is the case, we find situation that some voters will want to come out and say, let's carry out our mandate, and know that for INEC, it's not just one state. Apart from Benue State, we have Ebonyi State, Yobe, Kebbi, Lagos, Ondo. And in Ondo in particular, in terms of security, I have read that the Commissioner of Police has restricted movement in Surulere, which is the main stage for tomorrow's election, because Femi Gbajabiamila, who won the National Assembly seat has stepped aside to go and serve as the chief of staff to the president of the country. So
that's in Lagos State.
Watching to see. Oh, yes, that's for Lagos State. You know, and of course, some of the notable vacancies to be filled include that of David Umahi, Senator Ibrahim Jide, you know, Bumi, Tunji Ojo, Tanko Sununu, you know, and some of them resigned their appointments. And of course, coming out from the decisions of some of the courts to have by-elections.
All right, I'm sorry to cut in here, but there's particularly, you know, some outstanding issues. Now, one of it is Plateau State, where we understand that that INEC actually did not include the People's Democratic Party, particularly in Plateau North Senatorial District. That's just not, and Bassa, you know, federal constituency, based on the verdict of an appeal court. And we had our reporter on ground who did some findings, and I mean, you could really see that the representatives there of the PDP didn't find it funny, you know. And we also understand what has been happening on the plateau lately concerning insecurity. Do you think this scenario is in line, you know, from a legal perspective? I'm still on you, Barrister. And also, do you see this impacting, you know, negatively or in any way on the fragile peace on the plateau?
Thank you. I mentioned earlier that INEC should have learned from decisions of the tribunals and the courts and from the previous election. But the case of Plateau is peculiar. Recall that some of the sacked members of the House of Assembly decided to go back to office recently, and the security agent, you know, had to restrain them. And the argument was based on the decision that favored the governor-elect of Plateau State, who is still the sitting governor, where the Supreme Court made a statement that the Court of Appeal did not have jurisdiction over pre-election matters. But interestingly, the victory of the governor and the pronouncement of the Supreme Court cannot be transferred to the members of the House of Assembly who were sacked, because as we speak today, the final destination for considering electoral matters in respect of the House of Assembly is the Court of Appeal. So there is no provision that it can move on to the Supreme Court, except the National Assembly that is mandated by Section 4 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended, now amends the Electoral Act further to enable people within that class to come up to the Supreme Court for final decision. For as it stands, that may explain why INEC has not produced, you know, featured them in this voting, because the decision of the Court of Appeal remains final, and that is for Plateau State. And if there is any error, INEC also should learn from the decision in Kano State that you don't just delete the votes of electorates because your staff did not stamp and sign electoral materials. I mean, the politicians should not, the candidates should not pay for that negligence. So we still have a lot to tighten. There should be consequences for some of these omissions. But by and large, I believe that the case of Plateau is based on the fact that a final bus-stop was approached in respect of the legislators, and then the court has decided, and there is no higher court to pronounce on it. So they may wait for the next general election, or, for instance, go and lobby at the National Assembly. Their colleagues, politicians at the National Assembly for further amendment. I believe that should explain the case of Plateau State. Okay,
I would like to move to Godbless right now and know your take concerning issues right now on the plateau. The fact that the PDP has been excluded from the ballot list, and right now it appears like members of the party are pretty much aggrieved. Do you think that would impact in any way on the election process in the state? and ultimately, on the fragile piece that is currently on the plateau?
Well, I do not think, or I do not believe that it would impact negatively on the current peace and the fragile state. And simply because this is not a matter of, INEC did not just wake up and made the decision to exclude members of the PDP or the PDP logo from the ballot box, rather the ballot papers, rather. Like, the learned, legal practitioner has just said, is that, and I made a mention, I alluded to it earlier in my statement that none of the case coming out from these by-elections or the reruns would go to the Supreme Court because the Electoral Act does not permit cases that are not within the governorship or the presidential to get to the Supreme Court level. So a lot of the cases would definitely then, die at the appeal court. So it tells us that the actions of INEC is covered by law. So whoever is thinking that because they were excluded from the process, then they can take the law in their hands, all of the it would impact on people.
Okay, God bless. We lost you for a moment there, but if you're still on, prominent figures like the former president of Nigeria, that's Goodluck Jonathan, have advocated for unified elections, that, all of this happens, all at once, and it's not, scattered and in splinters. Now, how tenable is this?
I mean, I think it is very tenable. I think it is possible. To be honest with you, the system we run right now is very difficult for INEC to achieve, unified excellence, because you go into an election, before you give somebody a certificate of return, before they even swear them in or settle in, you realize that you need to conduct another election. So I do agree with the president that we must find a way to get all of these things to become uniform so that we do not stretch INEC the way we're stretching it. See, I mean, for some of us who are leaders, working with CSOs, we have the opportunity of engaging INEC at a level that most citizens don't have access to. And we understand the challenges. INEC is still like just one of these agencies that is run by Nigerians, manned by Nigerians, has the Nigerian factor affecting it. We may look at it that, INEC has these monies to conduct election, but when you look at INEC generally, there's still a lot of underfunding that is happening at a very disturbing level. During elections, you hear a lot of things around, INEC got this money, INEC got that money. But when you work with INEC and you go to the state level, the local government level, the community level, you realize how underfunded INEC is. I am not excusing the fact that there may be, internal corruption happening and maybe people just siphoning monies that are meant for the system, but I'm just saying that what we have seen. So the capacity for INEC to organize an election that is very effective on a consistent basis is hampered by the staggeredness of the way our elections currently is. So if the former president is saying, look, we've got to unify this thing, it's because when you unify it, you get unified results, you focus your attention on governance, and we know when the next time elections will happen. So, but for us to get that, people have to respect the rules. INEC has to conduct its election in the way that is fail-proof, so that people who win and those who lose understand that they've either won or they've lost, so that people who either have been given certificate of failure can continue to serve, the people. So I do agree with him, and I think it is an important step in the right direction if we consider it, even as we amend our electoral acts moving forward.
All right, I'd like to know Barrister Ologun's take on this. Do you think that Nigeria having unified elections is actually tenable?
Absolutely. I tie myself with Mr. Godbless' position. And you see, we are in a global community. So how are elections conducted in Germany, in the United States, and other parts of the world? So we need to simplify. You see, the essence of dynamism is to simplify processes and make it more effective. And that is why this globally has not changed. That elections are expected to be free, fair, and credible. So whatever we make it credible, whatever make it free, why not? And if we fully embrace the involvement of technology, for instance, why do we need to stagger all our elections and then, have one month, the other? I mean, it has a huge burden on the nation, but I believe we are equal because at least before now, we were not deploying equipment like beavers, IREF facilities and stuff like that. So I believe we should look at all this and the principle of project management that demands that projects should be managed in a way that is cost effective. So we need cost effective elections. Why not have all these things unified? But speaking for by-elections, again, can we come to the point where we amend the laws that if you have been elected as the member of the National Assembly, for instance, you cannot go and take up another political appointment, right? Then can we come to the point where the performance of INEC is so credible that the electorate and the stakeholders agree that it is free and fair enough so that we don't have judicial interventions? So these are issues because these are the two major. And we cannot say that people cannot die because some of the reasons for the by-elections that some of the elected personalities have passed on, and you don't leave that vacuum. So if we can deal with the source of by-elections, then we can stop the unnecessary, or permit me to use that expression, expenditure and spending billions of naira and then all the overhead glitches attached to that. So we also should try as much as possible to leverage on the global experience. It can be better. I mean, the COVID-19 also taught us a lot of lessons. Now, let me ask a simple question. If we must hold an election during the COVID-19, how could INEC have hosted that election? So these are issues. So the wise man said the biggest room in life is the room for improvement. So I quite agree with the concern of the former president of Nigeria, Dr. Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, and I hope the present president also will try to look into some of these variables and also realize that someday he will leave office. So whatever he needs to see now and not delay till he leaves office, he has the executive power by Section 5 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended to engage the other arms of government and see that necessary amendments are put in place to make our electoral processes more effective, more productive, and of course, conducted in a very prudent manner. So those are my submissions.
Okay. I mean, still in that same vein, civil society groups have also advocated that the idea of cases, post-electoral matters or election matters still being in court and a winner is already declared and sworn in, should be looked into. That, election litigation should be resolved totally before a final winner emerges. I'd like to know your take on that. I'm still on you, barrister.
I fully agree with that. And let's use an analogy. Imagine that there is a contest over a property, and you know how vital possession is. And one party is allowed to say, okay, this building is vacant. We can go in there and settle down until we resolve the matter. So what happens if the matter is resolved not to be in favor of the occupant? I quite agree with that, but there has been an improvement. Before the amendment of the Electoral Act, it was not time-bound, but it was amended to time-bind it that, okay, within this space of time. But again, it is not still the best. And let me say this, the special feature of democracy is the National Assembly and the state houses of assembly, because you don't have that under a military regime. So they hold a very serious position, and they represent the constituents across the country. And Section 4 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended mandates the National Assembly to make laws for the peace, orderliness, and good governance of Nigeria. So it is within the purview of the mandate of the National Assembly, for instance, to make laws that, okay, going forward, all electoral matters that end up in the tribunal or court of competent jurisdiction must be resolved before the swearing in of the winners. I think that will help us a lot. And another thing now may be that, depending on the time frame that is given, because when you consider the fundamental human rights of fair hearing, you can also not rush these matters if they end up in court. Then you may shift the inauguration time forward, So there are many dynamic approaches you can bring into fine-tuning the electoral ecosystem in the country. But that is also in the hands of the politicians themselves. And let me say this, if some are complaining now in Plateau State that the party is not featured for the elections, it's one of the issues that should have bothered them. Some of us have been raising these issues in the past, that when you are in office, be part of instituting best practice procedures and policies and regulations. If it favors you today, it may haunt you tomorrow. So imagine that the members of the House of Assembly in Plateau State had the privilege or the opportunity of proceeding to the Supreme Court. Maybe it's the Supreme Court that bailed them out.
Okay.
So even if they are not there, they have friends that they can lobby. So if you make laws stand on the platform of the rule of law, which means it should be representative with a universal nature, it's not because it favors you, then we all benefit from it. And that is where we are right now as a people. But the doors are not shut in amendments.
Okay, I'd like to also know Godbless's opinion on this. Do you think that before winners, finally declared, and of course a candidate resumes office officially, as rightful owner of that position, court cases, litigations should be settled. Post-election matters, should be resolved first. Maybe you can have titles like maybe president or, senator in waiting, as against, giving such an individual the full title and privilege of office.
I totally agree with Barrister Joe there when he said he agrees, because when we were working on the advocacy for the Electoral Reforms Bill 2022, I know that one of the things we advocated for was that we wanted all electoral litigation to be resolved before swearing in. I remember that was a clause we were really passionate about. Now, remember that the way, the National Assembly works is, so the bill is considered third reading, it passes, and then it goes to conference committee, and then it goes to, this whole process where they harmonize between the Senate and the House of Representatives, and then you then get the final version of the bill that is eventually signed by the president, you not knowing what the final details are, because most times it is kept under wraps. It is after the president signs it that you then realize that, okay, this is what is in it and this is what is not in it. We really believe that as part of what CSOs were asking for was that you cannot empower someone with the privileges of office and tell them and tell the other person that you have not empowered that they have the same fighting chance. It doesn't happen in our climate. the people that we are copying, the United States that we're copying. Let me just take us back to the 2020 elections in the US. Once the election was called to have been won by Vice President Joe Biden, Trump said the election was rigged. He said, no, it's not going to, be possible because, we've seen evidence here and there. And then the American people and the institutions of government said, you know what, prove your case before January 20th, where this man will be sworn in. He went to court, tested all his case, all the evidence, and the court said there is nothing here. So what the Americans do is that before the person who is regarded to have won, before the person is sworn in, all litigation would have been taken care of. Now, in comparison, the two contexts are definitely not the same. The Americans understand the dispensing of justice as a cornerstone of the democracy that they operate, whereas ours, we can have cases that are just taking over longer periods and all of that. So if we want to really move forward, we must go back, and of course we're coming back, and I'm saying this to the National Assembly, I'm saying this to the House Speaker and the Senate President, just be expecting us, we're coming back in full force again. We'll be amending the act so that cases that are in contention must be sorted out before people are sworn in and given the privileges of office. Because with the title of president-elect comes access to national security information, access to DSS protection on another level. Both local and international partners come and talk to you. That already confers on you a certain level of privilege and advantage. It is no longer a fair field. So we are saying it not for those who are there today or for those who want to come. It is for the generations of people that will come through this country. So like my learned, barrister said, don't think that if the law favors you today, it will not punish you tomorrow. So my submission is that I'm calling on INEC, calling on the National Assembly. I'm putting my hands together with my partner on this on this call, rather on this set, to let Nigeria be blessed to have issues resolved before people are sworn in.
God bless, are you there?
I am here. I don't know if you can still hear me, but I'm here.
Okay, great.
I am still here.
All right. We lost you there for a moment. But right now, let's go on a quick break. When we return, of course, there are still matters arising on this particular issue. Stay with us. This is still the conversation. And of course, on the show today, we are looking at matters arising concerning Nigeria's by-elections holding tomorrow. And on the program, we'll still have Jide Ologun, a legal practitioner, and Godbless Otubure. That's the global president ready to lead Africa. Gentlemen, thank you for hanging on. And of course, this time around, let's delve into the aspect of the voters, particularly when it comes to voter sensitization. Let's start from the basic level. How do we ensure that Nigerians select the right type of candidate? From the primary level all the way, I'm talking from the local government all the way to, the top job, that's the federal level. How do we ensure that voters are properly informed, they are not easily influenced? How do we ensure that voters even ask the right questions? Questions even as basic as, what do you do for a living? How are you able to fund your campaign? So the aspect of voter sensitization in all of this too plays a key role. I would like to stay with you on this, God bless. What can be done?
What can be done? I think my internet.
Okay, God bless. Maybe while you're still on the
my internet source is against them.
Maybe while you're still trying to sort it out.
Is it better now?
Let's give you some
is it
time.
better?
Okay, I think it's better now. Let's stay with you.
Okay. Okay, great. So what I was saying was, for us to be able to get it right at the level of citizens and the voters, and I would give my solution in this way. It's not going to be cosmetic. It's not going to be palliative. If Nigerians are ready, the solution to our democratic journey is quality education. When the citizens of Hong Kong defied Beijing and opted for a democracy, the research that was commissioned to find out how come, despite the might of China, these guys defied them. What came out was that the liberal arts education of citizenship that people in Hong Kong received when they were young was the bedrock upon which their resistance was built, was the bedrock upon which their sense of duty to country was built, was the bedrock upon which the idea to stand for democracy was built, so that they can choose who their leaders will be. As I speak to you right now, the average Nigerian is poorly educated. He or she does not understand the importance of a vote. He or she does not understand the importance of the person that you send to lead you, because they don't understand that the cost of rice, beans, oil, fuel is dictated by the person who they vote for. Not because the person is from their church or their tribe or their religion, but because the person is superintending over their resources. The average Nigerian does not understand that. This is now what we have been doing. We have been doing palliative enlightenment. You are telling somebody who is internally damaged that it is important to vote when they don't internally understand the importance of that vote. So we have a crisis. The crisis is we're trying to look like we're giving solution, but we're not. We're just romancing the idea of solution. So what is my take? Change the way you build your schools. Change the way you fund your education. Make education productive. Let it be something that empowers the human being to make independent decisions. That way, in the next 20 years, that would be 2 decades, you would have raised a generation that is capable of making self-informed decisions, such that the people who they vote for will be people who can solve their problems, not those who can dance or eat corn by the roadside, or fry akara during the election, or shout APC or PDP or Labour or whatever. No, but people who will bring manifestos, come on their national television and defend why they should be voted for. That is when you solve the problem. But if you want me to tell you now, because Nigerians like magic, miracle, okay, I will say it. Let us enlighten our people more. Let us inform them more. Let us preach to them more. But that is palliative solution. The real solution is educating your people to understand that productivity is tied to your understanding of who should lead you. You question them. You ask them, what do they do for a living? What is their pedigree? What have they done before? What are they bringing to the table? And then you should be confident to also hold them accountable. That is why we are now at Ready to Lead Africa, empowering citizens across the country using technology to hold government accountable. We're holding this president accountable, governors accountable, senators accountable, and House of Rep members accountable, and even councillors and local government chairmen and House of Rep members, because our commonwealth is what is at stake. So that is how to get it done. That is how to get our people and the voters to be better. It may not be today, but it will be tomorrow, because the Chinese proverb said, the best time to plant a tree is today, rather is yesterday.
I mean, God bless, you've said quite a number of things, but let's give Barrister Jide Ologun some, time to also air his view on what he thinks concerning voter sensitization. What really inspired this question, and I'll give you a real-life scenario. On my way to the studio today, I passed a major market, and I saw the market women, they were seriously, sad, and they were talking about the economy. And one of them was shouting and saying she wouldn't mind, rallying her colleagues to go, almost bare naked, to Aso Rock and vent and, talk about their economic frustration and all of that. And I mean, if you cast your mind back to 2023, you find out that quite a number of these people are the ones who come out during elections to vote. And you would also agree that many of them are easily influenced. They are given rice, they are given, all sorts of foods, stuff, just, some of them to influence them to vote for certain parties. So my question is, what can be done, particularly at the basic level, to ensure that an average Nigerian is not voting based on religion, race, tribe, but instead is focused on competence? Please, I'd like you to do this in 30 seconds without mentioning political parties.
Thank you. And then let me link up with the brilliant submissions of Godbless. And the magazine says the best time to have planted a tree was 20 years ago. The next best time is now. You see, speaking holistically, education is very vital. Taiwan was able to handle COVID-19 exceptionally because of an enlightened citizenship profile in that nation. So they cooperated with the efforts of the government. But in a nation where ignorance is widespread, poverty is widespread, to take away the mindset of people from productivity to palliative engagement. So they just want to survive for the day. And the survivor's mentality is a far distance away from excellence mentality. So you talk about China. China has one of the best succession plan scheme in the world. And it's about the people. That is why you hear the People's Republic of China. But on the converse side,
but China
it's so
is
amazing
communist.
that punish these Nigerians, again, they will repeat their folly. So, and the Bible says in Hosea 4:6, that my people perish for lack of knowledge. So I believe that beyond what the politicians will do to teach people how to vote for them, even INEC is expected to have an education department to enlighten the people. And some NGOs do that. I participate in that also. But beyond that, you need an enlightened citizenship profile. Those who can discern and take decisions based on sustainable development. If I ask a simple question here now, many will be surprised. What do we have in section 16 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended? Do you know there are provisions in our constitution that says the government should provide affordable house, affordable food,
Barrister Ologun, we need to go. Please land on that, and then, of course, we'll wrap up so that people can know.
Society. And may I say, God bless Nigeria, and we hope that tomorrow's election will be peaceful. And I believe people are even tired of killing themselves for politicians right now. So thank you very much for this brilliant opportunity, and God bless Nigeria.
All right. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Barrister Jide Ologun, legal practitioner, and also Godbless Otubure, Global President, Ready to Lead Africa. Once again, deeply appreciate. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having us.